welcome to the TVMusic Network Podcast with Phyllis and Belinda. I'm Belinda.
And I'm Phyllis.
And today we're going to talk about Janet Jackson.
Janet Jackson, period.
Yes, Janet Jackson, period. Just spell it on out. Basically, what it is, if you don't know,
You've been living under a rock
you
and you missed something.
Anyway, if you don't know, Janet Jackson just released a documentary
Of her life
and her family, and it premiered this weekend on Lifetime.
Yeah, it was a 4-hour documentary that they aired over 2 nights on Lifetime and on A&E about Janet. She executive produced it. It's all her. She did it along with her brother Randy, who was also her manager. And they talked about her life. Her growing up, when she was little. She started in the business when she was 7. So she's been doing this for almost 50 years.
Yes,
which is amazing.
It's amazing. Now, most people know Janet Jackson. You know her from the Jackson 5 family, Michael's sister.
Yeah,
and
I was going to say, you know her as Michael's sister.
Most people know her from that album. But one thing about Janet, she doesn't talk much.
No.
She's very quiet.
Very private.
Very private. Like, she never talks much. You don't see her in 5,000 interviews. Talking about her personal life. You'll see her. She would only really come out when you had to promote a new album, which is part of a promotion plan. When you're on a record or when you're doing a movie or TV, that's a promotional tour. Other than that, I don't think you would have probably seen anything from her because she's just that person. And one thing about Janet, you all know her. You know about her. You know this. You know things. And the best thing about this documentary was fantastic, by the way, was it was her telling the story.
Right. It featured interviews. Like, there were confessionals between herself, of Randy as a member of her family, and it featured interviews with 2 of her, 2 other siblings, her oldest sister and the oldest child, Rebe Jackson, and then her brother Tito. Everybody knows Tito.
Yeah, everybody knows.
They may not know the names of all the other ones. They know Michael, and they know Tito. Who plays the guitar.
Yes, and so that's one thing I liked about it, because usually, and what she even said, that was the reason why she wanted to make it, and then or not to have like a biopic where you have no say so and someone's playing you,
right, and the person is doing it has an impression of you, and she wanted to do it herself.
Yeah, and one thing I also like about it too, it's a documentary style, but it was a little bit different. It's a little bit different.
Different? How so?
It was a little bit different. It felt like, because usually when you watch documentaries, there's a person and they're telling the story. There's
a narrator.
Well, they're a narrator. Then they go to that person, and then the interview starts. Here, it was kind of like she was telling the story, leading around. There was a guy interviewing her, but it wasn't like a person sitting there doing all the interviews in a clip, and then the interviews and then a clip. I'm not probably explaining that correctly.
No, it's fine.
But that's one thing. It felt very personal.
And I think, too, it was in chronological order.
Yes.
Started from when she was a baby, from when she grew up, how she started, when she's with her family, all the way up until she was like 18 in 1 hour. Then it went from her like control years, her early days when she was acting, television acting on Different Strokes, Good Times, etc.
They didn't even show Different Strokes, did they?
No, they didn't.
There wasn't even a clip.
What was her name? Charmaine?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
they can't fit everything.
Yeah, they had that. They had Fame. They talked to Debbie Allen. All the people when she was like 18, like from what? 12 or 13 till like 18 when she really, did her acting and stuff, and then she went back to music or focused on music after that.
So that's one thing I liked about it. I just thought it was really different. And another thing I also thought about is that you kind of didn't know anything about this documentary.
It just kind of came out of nowhere.
It just came out of nowhere. And the funny thing about it is there's a documentary that's going to be coming out that's about her in the Super Bowl scandal or whatever. I think it's by the same people who did the Britney Spears one, or they got the idea because they saw the Britney Spears, maybe the same people. And everyone was all excited about it. And
it was all about the controversy surrounding the Super Bowl when she did the halftime performance with Justin Timberlake, and there was that wardrobe malfunction. I'm going to call it that.
Yeah, so
that blew everybody up.
Yeah, so that was going to be coming out. So everybody was waiting. Okay, we're waiting because the Britney's a big story right now with the whole Britney free movement. And I thought, okay, I'm going to be into this documentary. They were starting to interview dancers and all that. And boom, like clockwork. I don't know if it was Janet's idea, or if it was Randy's idea, or whose idea it was. Because that came out, and that started to get buzz, and then bam, Janet Jackson's having a documentary, coming out in January. Everybody's like, whoa, slow down. So I think they kind of beat that. They beat it. I don't know if it was done intentionally or not, or if the two stories are going to be the same. But here you got Janet who brought it out. So
right.
People can still watch that one and, saw what was left out, what wasn't, or whatever. But this
right.
is the one that's authorized by her. And
right.
Another thing I thought, too, was you didn't have to be a big Janet fan to watch and enjoy it.
Oh, exactly.
You could learn from it.
Yeah, know some of her music.
You could learn from some of her music. I mean, everyone knows Control.
Right.
You might not know there's 10, 12 albums. You may not know she also did acting.
Yeah.
Most people know Good Times, depending on, your age or generation
right.
or family members who told you. And people, but you could actually watch it.
Yeah, and I think what I liked about it, too, is the fact that it was on Lifetime. And Lifetime has promoted itself as being for women, about women, controlled by women, written by women. And I think that was probably one of the relatable things about it, too. Because each woman can relate to having some kind of success. Each woman can relate to growing up in a family where maybe your father was a little difficult, or maybe where you didn't have a good relationship with them. Everybody can relate to being like the youngest of a bunch of kids. And then you feel, a certain way about that family. And everybody can relate to having relationships, being in love, failed relationships. Everybody, can relate to having career ups and downs. Everybody can relate to wanting to raise a family and wanting to be a mother. I think that was one of the reasons why I liked it as well, because it seems like every topic that they did, she made you feel like you could relate to it.
Yes.
And I like, I like that. So, do you want to talk a little bit about the first hour?
Let's start right there.
Let's go.
I mean, just the way they did it, I really, we've watched it,
couple times
now. We're gonna have to probably watch it again just to now kind of break it down and all that, but
to get further into it, right?
Feel of it. But we wanted to talk about it while it was like right in our minds. But let's start. Start with the first hour. Okay, first hour started, and Janet's in a car, and she is, she's in her car. She's in the back seat. She's talking, and she's in Gary, Indiana.
Yeah, she's driving through Gary, Indiana.
Right there.
To go to the house
it's 2017. Oh, okay. So she starts this documentary in 2017, and they followed her for 5 years. I don't know if that was supposed to be 5 years, or was it supposed to come out earlier? But we don't know because of the pandemic. If they, if it's been sitting there or not sitting there, I don't really know that. But they followed her for 5 years.
Right.
And it starts in 2017, and she's in this car. And she is driving through Gary, Indiana. So I first got all emotional and choked up and everything just to see her and all that because we lived in Gary, Indiana. So right there, it was like a connection. It was like, our first concert, as in me and you sisters, was the Jacksons 5. They were still the Jackson 5 when we saw them. Yeah, the Jackson 5. We saw our first concert was in Gary, Indiana, seeing the Jackson 5.
Right.
So, living in Gary, blocks from their old house, and I've been outside their house. I've been out their house looking and seeing and all that, and just enjoying, that's like a big milestone that someone from that family came from. They're not the only ones, but we have Denise Williams. There's people that have been famous that have come from Gary, Indiana, but
they were the
biggest.
Yeah. The very first ones that were big that everybody knew.
Everyone knew. Household. And so, just seeing her in that car, and she was going down the street, and I knew right away when she was going down the street, it starts off like she's on Broadway, and she's going, I'm like, right there's where the gas and light bill used to be, right there we used to go pay, me and my mom. And basically, she looks and she sees this mural, and it's a mural of the Jacksons.
Mm-hmm.
And there's 5 of them,
right.
It's the Jackson 5. And there's a mural, and she stops, and she goes, and it sounds like she didn't know it was there.
Yeah.
And she was driving down there on her way, and I didn't know it was there. And so I saw it. So right there, so there's a mural. It was a building. It was an abandoned building. They made a mural. The building is now gone, and the mural has been relocated in Gary. But so that was kind of emotional. She was just watching the story. So that was, Then she goes,
and I think her too, driving around the town, looking at the mural, talking about like where she grew up and stuff. That's emotional for everybody.
Yeah.
You remember when James Corden and Paul McCartney went to Liverpool,
yes.
Paul was going to his old house that he grew
yeah,
up in
he was,
and stuff.
oh my God, yeah.
It was very similar to that kind of
reaction,
because she's so famous.
Yeah.
Now she goes and she sees that, and then by the time that she and Randy visit that house, she sees all the stories and stuff. Everybody, like people that heard that she was there, was outside.
I like that they did it. They get
which
there,
reminds me of that
there,
too.
And then they get there and they come out, everybody's outside, and then she signs a couple autographs and talks to the kid. It was like really, it was really a trip. Somehow I probably got a little more emotional than other people probably would, because I kind of related. It kind of hit me when I saw it.
Yeah, but then I think that anybody can relate to it.
Anyone can relate to it.
Right.
And what I thought was really weird, she's born in 66, and they moved in 71. So she's a little girl. And she, Randy is telling her, here's Randy, who is 5 years older than her. He's telling her the story.
Right.
And because she didn't remember, she's a little girl. He was showing her, they're in a 2-bedroom house that's 670 square feet, a living room and a kitchen and 2 bedrooms. And he was explaining to her
9 kids plus
9 kids, and he explained to her where the brothers slept in the 2 bunk beds, and these brothers, had bunk beds going up, and then how her and Rebe and Latoya slept in the living room,
right,
on this big pull-out couch, and Janet didn't remember. He's telling her story, so I thought that was kind of cute. And then you also find out in this documentary, which a lot of people don't know, how close her and Randy are. I mean, everyone remembers Randy from when he joined the Jacksons. When he joined, when Shireen left, and they came back, and there was 6 of them. And Randy played the instruments and all that.
Do people know that they were the Jackson 5? I'm sure people know that ABC, I Want You Back, they're hits from when they were little kids and how they've grown into that. I think, too, part of the reason, because there's a lot about, her family and how she grew up, her origin story, and how she watched her brothers perform and stuff the whole time. But I think she wanted to see that, she's a superstar too. She's just as big as they are.
Oh, yeah. Oh, she's definitely. And I just thought that was very interesting, because you kind of saw a different dynamic of it. She's talking to Randy. He's explaining to all the stuff. He's her manager now. And she was saying how the 3 of them were very close. Her, Michael, and Randy are very close. And then I never used to see close to Michael, and he'd be there with Randy,
Right.
And then Randy, is working for her, and he was also a solo artist too, and played with the Jacksons. So that was a really good dynamic. That was something different to see.
Yeah,
I thought I was very interested. Like, oh, there's Randy. What's going on? So I thought that was good. But in the first hour, she basically covers her family. She basically covers her family for the first hour of the documentary. She explains when they moved. They moved to Encino, and she explained how they went from this 2-bedroom house to this big house, and how neighbors weren't like a petition, and some of the neighbors weren't used to, having, mixed neighborhoods, and, they probably one of the first ones, and this and that. And they ever said, so she goes, they've got, some...
Yeah, tail end of civil rights.
They got some tail ends of that, and she explained all of that, and she talked about her father, and, most people always have that, the story about Joe being very strict on the guys.
Yeah.
And Randy was explaining it to her, and her mom was telling her that, he had an instrument because he used to play. And then when he would go to work at the steel mill, what they showed in Gary, and her dad and Tito would play the instrument, and then when they see him coming, they run around and put it away, and then maybe kids, they became a band. They started rehearsing, and he was like running the band, and he was very strict and telling them what to do.
Yeah, it's really hard on them.
Really hard on them to get them where they needed to be.
Yeah, and then here's Janet. He decided when she was young, a little girl, she was gonna start acting. So that's when she did Good Times. Then he wanted her to do Fame. He wanted her to do, other particular things and stuff that she didn't necessarily want to do, but she did them because it was her dad.
She did. Yeah, he told you something to do it, and you did it.
Right.
You really had no say-so.
Right. And
he saw. He put them all in the music business.
Right.
And he put them on the business. They were the family, and they even had got a variety show. They started doing shows in Vegas, and when they did shows in Vegas, the whole family went because you were family, and then Toy's in the show, and Reeby's in the show, and Janet's in the show doing Sonny and Cher with Randy. So that's how she started performing. She was little and doing her thing. So basically, that's the first hour. She covers like the whole their career, like what was happening, how it felt to her, what it meant to her, her dad, and how it, entered the work and everything else. And
I liked it. I think it told me things that I didn't know, number one, and it allowed me to reminisce about, loving their music, being all into the band, growing up with Janet, liking her too. So that's what I loved about that.
Yeah, and they basically talked about this, and they showed them, what happened. Mom used to make their costumes. And then they have old footage. There's interviews. Her dad has passed away now, and they use old footage of him from interviews he's done from like news places,
right?
And that's where they get his interviews from. So you get his side of it,
and you get
their
old footage.
Michael, there's footage. There's voiceover of Michael talking about when I'm in a band and so besides some old clips. But there's tons of old pictures that are definitely personal pictures that you just. There's like pictures of them that are little. There's pictures of them. You just don't see them. You see like some of the basic ones, but they definitely went into like their family archives and pulled. You always have that one cousin or that one aunt that has a box of all these old family pictures, and you see it. You're like, I've never seen that, so I'm sure somebody pulled a box up or something and showed the pictures and whatever. I don't know. They have these old ones from Gary and whatever, and I don't know if a relative had them or they had them or who knows, but they had them and they used them in this documentary. And then once we get into the second hour, and they talk about the family show, and they talk about what they were doing. And then when we get to the second hour, she starts talking about how she started acting. Her dad heard about this part on Good Times, wanted her audition, and she goes and she gets the part, and she's playing Little Pitty, and they show that, and then that's how she started doing like little acting parts or whatever. So when you get to the second hour, she starts talking about. She put out 2 albums. They didn't have as big success as everyone did. I have them, Dream. Anyway, and You Don't Stand Another Chance, and they, showed her doing like Dick Clark, your basic appearances. She had to deal with A&M. And then she said she just wanted to do something, different. She turned 18.
Yeah, she said if I'm going to do this music again or do something, I have to do it my way. I have to break away from my father. Yeah. So then the one way to break away from your father, and it's funny, it was like a pattern with all of the family members, I think, was to get married. Yeah, leave your family, leave your family, leave your house and get married. Yeah. Which is what she did.
And which the majority of them did. The majority of them got married, when they all got, they're older than her, so she's a baby. So when they all got married, that was the pattern. So she met James DeBarge.
From the DeBarge.
Of the DeBarge family.
Rhythm of the Night, if people don't know the song. Night.
She was trending, because a lot of people don't know who James DeBarge is. They know Al DeBarge. They know the group DeBarge.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't know. So, for those of you who didn't see the document and didn't see it, the group DeBarge with Rhythm of the Night.
I guess we should have said there was a lot of spoilers in this if you hadn't seen
I guess we probably should have said that. Well, if you're listening and we're giving you all the spoilers, there will be more. This is basically to tell you what we thought if you hadn't seen it and if you should watch it, which is yes. Sorry. Anyway, and so she met James DeBarge, and she met him through her sister LaToya, because his LaToya was good friends with Bobby DeBarge, was a group called Switch, and they, so little sister goes out, you meet little brother, they're around the same age, and they start talking, they were friends. They start talking, they fall in love.
Yep.
They elope and get married.
Yep.
Which back in the day, before TikTok and internet and Instagram and
you could kind of do it,
and Twitter and everything else, because if that would have happened today, it never would have been like it. It would have been first of all, they would have been told in 2 seconds. The minute she got to Michigan to get married, it would have been Janet's in Michigan. So they basically eloped, and I remember back when it came out, you read about it in Jet magazine that Janet Jackson eloped and all that. Well, anyway, long story short on that. Long story short on that, it ended up not working out. They got divorced, everything else.
Too young.
They were
different
too young.
Points in different
things. They ended up getting annulled. Back then, there was always a rumor that the dad took her to get annulled, and and they never saw James again, and James was trying to get her back or whatever. Janet really doesn't talk about that. There really isn't like interview. Like I said, there's no footage of Janet just
before this documentary
just talking about James DeBarge. However, James DeBarge did talk about it, and they showed a clip. They have no new footage of James DeBarge. I was hoping they did, but they didn't. They showed an old clip of him from growing up hip hop.
Just what we need.
Where his daughter was a contestant on there. I guess you could call it contestants. It was a reality show about growing up hip hop, which are celebrity kids that grew up in the business.
Off the subject.
And James's daughter is there.
Getting off the subject.
And they got on the subject of Janet, and that's what the footage they used. And there was always a rumor that Janet and James had this secret baby. That they had a baby.
That rumor grew like wildfire all of a sudden.
That rumor has been around since the 80s. It has been around since the 80s. It's never going away. So that was the only time he had talked about it. He had even said that, and there was tabloid stories he did, his family members did. They even had a girl on Growing Up Hip Hop that shows up to meet his daughter, saying she was the daughter. So this went all around. There was, rumors the daughter went to Jackie, other family members.
Using the Jackson family name.
Yeah, using the Jackson family name and all that stuff. So she actually approached it, and that was one of the things that people were waiting to hear, because you want to hear what she had to say. And she said I basically would never keep, I would never keep the kid from their father and, all of this stuff. And then and they showed the pictures of her nieces and nephews and all that and whatever. So people were...
Debbie Allen was there too. And during the height of fame, which is when all this stuff had come out, and Debbie's like, she's with us every day, all this kind of stuff. What baby?
Mm-hmm. And it's been coming up. They always been coming up. They even had a scene in one of the, TV movies about DeBarges. And, it's always going to be something to come up. People are probably debating it now, and they, we finally got Janet to talk about it. Here's what she said and whatever. But anyway, so that was the footage they got on that. So that was one of the things that people were waiting to see from the episode. So she covered that episode too. And her and Renee split up.
Yeah.
And
her relationship with Renee. Her second husband.
James,
yeah.
They so then
mentioned that too.
Yeah, they went to Renee a lot. Renee, she was married to Renee for 9 years, and I think the thing with Janet, she's very private. So when she got married to James, you didn't know about it until you read this magazine, a week or two later.
Yeah,
or a month later.
Well, it's the same with Renee.
And same thing with Renee.
Her she was creative director.
9 years, and no one knew until she announced they were getting divorced, and he was trying to get so much because he had, and Renee. His family was in the business. She met him, and I know he's in one of the videos, and they met and they connected.
So he was a dancer, I think, that he met. He's a choreographer, became a business partner, boyfriend, and he had a lot of creative control in them. They were like a partnership. I want to say like Pat Benatar and her husband, like Tim and Face Now, and all these things where you didn't really know.
So he pretty much was like, she had a management, but he was pretty much like the number one, like the day-to-day person. Like, he was day-to-day with Janet, doing this stuff with her, letting you know everything she was doing and all this stuff, too. So he was very involved. So there's a lot of time to spent with him. But I found it interesting. She said, I don't know what it is. I just have a problem. I try to help people, and I was fine, get you at people that do drugs. And we're like, okay. So they end up splitting up.
For me, I was surprised by how much footage, like he recorded pretty much like everything they said. So it was like documentary footage, or having a camera follow them around the whole entire time. And then
before a reality show,
and then if people don't know, his hands were the hands that were on that album cover where she's naked that whole time, and hands are on her breast, and the person is whited out, but those were his hands.
So they showed that. Now that's probably the only part of the documentary where it kind of slows down a little bit. Only because they go back and forth, and they show like the tour, and they show them talking, and then they show him at her house, and I really enjoyed it. It was very, very interesting. But at one point, I was like, he can't move along more, because in between that, they're showing you like her tours,
and rehearsal schedules, how hard she's working.
Yeah, they're giving you her stats, and her stats are coming up on the screen, like 9 number ones, so albums or whatever. And I'm thinking, I could hear a little bit more about those. and a little less of that. But she's telling you, she's telling you stuff you aren't going to find anywhere else.
Right.
You can find my stats on this chart, but you're not going to find
how I feel about it.
You're not going to find how I feel about it. So that was pretty much all in the second hour. It also showed her relationship with her longtime producers,
right?
Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, and they have footage
and
from that.
You can see the writing process.
Yeah, the writing process.
How they wrote Rhythm Nation, how all that came about, how contentious it could be, how stubborn she could be, how everything kicked off. They showed that as well too.
And then you get into so then that's night one. So you're like all hyped up. Ooh, gotta see night two. So night two comes. So then night two pretty much continues with, Jimmy Jam until we get up to 1990. And I was like, well, we're going to need another couple hours because we are only up to 1990
That's
and we
funny.
got to get to, today. So it starts with 1990 and they start talking about her tour and her record and more working with Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. At this point, they're now working on the Nets album. So they start talking about that. They show Renee still making a lot of decisions and they start showing her making the videos and the creative process of a couple of the videos. And then they start to talk about, they get into Michael Jackson.
Right.
They start to get into
the allegations.
The allegations of Michael Jackson for, the child, about his accusations of being a child abuser, which we're not going to talk about too much because some people have their feelings on, their opinions on it. We're not here to debate that.
It's about Janet.
But it's about Janet, and Janet brought it up and how it affected her.
Right.
So basically, she said, she feels her brother's innocent and he would never do that. And that she took some of the burden from it because it's guilty by association. Her being a Jackson, and he's been on trial, and nothing, she's on tour during this trial, and how it was coming up, every interview, every question.
Well, yeah, when she got famous, everybody was asking her about Michael.
She got famous, and that's something, too, she talked about, just being famous, and how doing interviews, everyone wants to know about Michael. Like, he was so big and so popular. I mean, he's one of the biggest stars ever.
Yeah, and the effect that had on
her. And that was pretty interesting to hear her say that, because you think about it, then she was also saying, which everybody says, too, but to hear it from her aspect, here's someone who's got fame, and she's famous, and she's on a sold-out tour, and she's doing this, and people are asking questions about someone in her family, or a family member. Everyone's famous. I mean, everyone in that family has put out records and put out something. Every kid in that family. So I got to think, she was saying just how she had very few friends, because she never knew if these friends were here because they were really her friends, or if they wanted to see the Jacksons, or they wanted to get this to Michael. And you get that all the time.
Yeah.
If you know anyone famous, you always got these people that are doing that. But it was actually kind of here to hear her actually talk about something. You're famous.
Yeah. The one thing I found interesting was when she talked about how once all those allegations and everything came out, how things started slowing down for her. Yeah. Like she got an offer to do a Coca-Cola commercial to kind of offset the Pepsi commercial that Michael had done. Mm-hmm. And when the allegations came out, the deal just kind of went away. Yeah. She wasn't offered it anymore. And I was like, that's just interesting to see it. And you can see how hurt she was when she thinks about it. And then when they were trying to decide what to do as a family, how they should handle it, I feel like the family kind of split off. Yeah. Some people thought they should do this. Some people thought they should do that. It was just kind of like weird.
That was kind of weird. It was kind of weird. It was very interesting. And you think about that. Everyone's trying to make decisions. It's in families in general. Yeah. Trying to make decisions. Exactly. And a controversy. Something happens in your family and all this, and you're not famous. So I can imagine which way they were going and how that affected her. You don't really think about that. Like, how did it affect the rest of the family and, what people were hearing and, stuff like that. But that was very, very interesting. So after they got past the allegations in her career, that she started talking about Scream, which is the duet song her and Michael put out. And how
that's probably the only song they ever did together.
Yeah, and she was saying how she wanted to be there for him and she wanted to support him and whatever. So they came up with this idea to do the song, and they showed a footage of her she's at Michael's New York apartment, and she has a word processor.
Yeah, I had that word processor.
You had that word processor.
Yeah.
And they showed a word processor, and she wrote a verse of the song, and he wrote a verse of the song. And then she was asking him if she could get the words to his verse so she could write her verse. And he's telling her, like, the words in the apartment. She's kind of singing, and that was very interesting.
Right.
And then she talked about the video shoot. It's really interesting because we've all seen that video. It was like a big deal when it came out. It was, whatever. In fact, when Janet started doing her concerts, she would have the video, and the video would be in the background, and she would do her same concert. When it got to that dance break of her and Michael, she would do the dance with Michael on the, on the side. And it's interesting that they talked about that, and you find out then that this video cost like $7 million.
I know, I'm like,
to
really?
make, and that she filmed her parts in the morning, and he filmed his parts at night.
It's like they didn't treat them like family members.
Yeah.
It's like, you're this one artist with,
and you're
with this
artist,
label, you're this artist with this label, and so the whole thing was filmed separately. Or
she was saying
he did her parts versus her parts.
Yeah, and she said they wouldn't let the record company didn't want her to look at the other part of the studio that he was at.
I thought that
and
was
she said they kind of made like a whole competition, and it sounds like she was saying that she was kind of shocked all this was happening.
Well, yeah,
and she felt like she was being there for her, and people around him were like starting to keep him away from her. So it sounded like she was kind of hurt by that, and like we don't know. We're just saying our interpretation from watching her talk about it. But she did say, she felt like, what's going on here,
right,
and whatever. So that was that, and then
did we jump off Renee? We might have, because they got divorced too.
Yeah, her and Renee got divorced too, and then. That's the last we saw Renee. Yeah, they got divorced, and then
that's all we needed.
Yeah, we didn't see Renee anymore. But one thing about his footage, like he had a camera following them
everywhere,
all kind of footage, which you never would have seen. Sure
I don't think so at all.
There's also a part where she's asking her mom questions, like her mom, they came and surprised her mom, and she has this footage, and he has this camera, and she's like, "Please don't film my mom," and whatever. So I can see that being an issue. I'm like, dude, turn that camera off,
Right.
And even her friend, Tina, her longtime friend, who's also one of her dancing choreographers, she was just like, they were close and they were all friends, and then it was got to be a little too much. Because he's always around now making business decisions. And so then that was that.
Yeah,
so her
maybe
Renee,
I got the sense he was like more control, more of a manager than a husband, boyfriend or something.
Yeah, it felt like
I don't know.
And they probably, she said they started as friends. And then they became, boyfriend and girlfriend, then became married. And then once they became married, he started doing the management kind of thing.
Right.
And I think he started, I think she was the one that said he started telling her how to look and how she looked or how something.
How she should feel. And
how she should do whatever. And I'm like,
issues with weight.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Right.
Yeah, she mentioned that too. She said she's always had issues with her weight. And she said she likes to do a lot of, control eating, or comfort
Everybody
eating.
does emotional
eating.
Emotional
eating. And they mentioned that, and I thought that was interesting. And then they got to Scream, and then I think the thing that the most people wanted to know about, which we do pick up in the third hour, when you come back the next day, she picks up on the Super Bowl. And I think that's probably the most thing everybody
the most interesting part
wanted to know about, only because that was so widespread. Like I said,
and then,
you may or may not know Janet Jackson, but you know about the Super Bowl incident.
And it kept coming up. And it came up again a few years ago when Justin repeat performs. I don't know how to say it. Where he performed again at the Super Bowl. And his people or him asked her if she wanted to do it. Yeah. And there's a conversation with her and Randy talking about it. If they wanted to do it, if they didn't want to do it, heard her feelings of. She felt that she was like outcast the whole entire time. She got disinvited from the Grammys. After this happened, they got so many calls. CBS did from the FCC. It was just a mess.
Oh, I remember. It was bad.
That shouldn't have happened, and that I truly believe was an accident.
Yeah, it was bad. It was totally bad because basically she's there. She just put out a record and had a record ready to go. And she hadn't recovered from that. People were definitely not seeing her. She wasn't getting the support, from labels. She wasn't getting support from her records coming out. she always has these big. She always has albums. That album didn't rush right out like the rest of them. She always had these big tours. It didn't go with It didn't lie. But she talked about that, and basically what she said was they planned it out. They started doing this whole thing. They had it all worked up. They had it all planned out. Justin came to meet her, and they did their song,
the performance that
did
night.
their rehearsal and everything else. And she said it's simply just an accident that the lining that she had on underneath the thing came all the way off. It came off. Some people say, it wasn't an accident.
Yeah, some people say it wasn't an accident.
It was an accident.
Because it timed with the lyrics of the song.
The lyrics of the song, his song, they thought it was for publicity and all that stuff. And when she discussed it, she said she took the brunt of everything. And she got uninvited to the Grammys. Jermaine, at the time, her boyfriend, resigned from the label because he felt it was hypocritical. You're telling my girl she can't perform, and then, so. But then the thing is, she said she was going to perform. I don't want to go around. I want it, and that was it. And then she said, but then the thing people didn't know and wanted to know about Justin, she said they talked right then after it happened, and she told him to go ahead and do something, and she was getting, all the I'll blame him and her. I mean, he pulled the thing, and all the blame was on her. And he went ahead and went to the Grammys. That was a big deal. He's on for 5 Grammys. He performed. I remember that whole thing. Should you be here? Should you not be here? And I think they covered it well. I think they covered it well. I think she explained it all. Like everybody's like, "Oh, here it comes! Here it comes! Super Bowl, Super Bowl, Super Bowl!" And I think about it now. There's a delay with any of the shows now, and there was a sports delay there.
I'm pretty sure they pre-recorded now too.
And they do. Yeah, well, what they had said was they record the rehearsal, like they record a full-on rehearsal the night before, and so like I don't have 100% on this. This is what I just heard, and that it's there as a backup, like if the whole satellite goes out at home or everything, or the power goes down at the stadium or something.
Right.
That show will still play because they have the rehearsal footage, but. They did it live. They played it, and
the thing that's so funny about that too, Super Bowl halftime shows have always been conversations, have always been talks, have always been something controversial around the audience. Maybe controversial is not the good word for it, but I'm just thinking about the Weeknd one that he did last weekend, last year, time. Yeah. Lady Gaga's one that was way over the top. The Coldplay one where people got invited with it and stuff. It was just like weird.
The Prince one, which is still my all-time favorite one, is the Prince Super Bowl.
Bruno. Love my Bruno.
It's one of those where, so it's always been a controversy. So when that happened, people were saying they did it for, they said she did it for publicity. Like, she did publicity to get an album. And I'm like, Janet Jackson doesn't need publicity. She doesn't need to do a stunt. She was playing on the Super Bowl's on the biggest platforms there. The record sales go up. I mean, it's huge because everybody watches.
Yeah, because every genre watches.
I shouldn't say everybody because everyone doesn't watch it.
Every genre watches Super Bowl.
I have friends go get their car washed because no one's
or go work out on Super Bowl Sunday.
Or they go work out because no one's there. But even if people who don't watch, they're kind of home with their families or just getting together to hang out. So that was the biggest thing right there. Who's playing Super Bowl? It's Janet, which is really good because she can cross different markets that, a lot of artists, doesn't cross.
Yeah.
So that was the big deal with that. And I thought I learned a lot about it.
Yeah, about how the business
I learned a lot about it. I knew a lot about it already, of course, like most of us do. But,
it was nice
and being a Janet fan, but it was really good to hear her side. And the biggest take from it was she mentioned Justin. And first they talked about Justin, and Randy's like, how do you know Justin? Did Jackie meet him first? Or how did you meet him? And she said, no, and Sync opened for me. And I remember when Sync did open for her.
I didn't know that.
And, she said that they opened for me, and that's how I got to know Justin. And the thing with that whole thing is that she was the Super Bowl artist, and they added people. He was the guest.
Right.
So that's what I thought was kind of odd at the time, that she took the whole fall for it. And, he's the one that pulled the thing, and then no one,
Well, they were saying...
like her name was on the bill, It's kind of a...
But some people, they showed a little clip of some people, like, overreacting, making statements and things about it. they were saying that part of the reason they were upset, in addition to, the Nipplegate thing, was that they had sexualized the show with their outfits, the costumes, like the style, the basic theme of the show.
Yeah.
When they felt it should be a little bit more family oriented.
Yeah, that was basically what it is. The complaints,
one of most of the complaints,
whatever. Yeah. And what's weird now, if you look at that was 2004. Here we are, all these years later.
Yeah, 21, 22.
Yeah, here we are this years later. It's like, would that have been a controversy today? If that happened today, I don't think it even would be a controversy.
Yeah, no one would even look at it.
Because it's, she had pants on. She wasn't she wasn't wearing like a bodysuit.
Like the
normal thing that you see now.
Grammy performances and things that you see on CBS. When you go,
most Grammy performances, everyone's in a bodysuit. That's the thing. They're in a bodysuit and tights and whatever else, too. She was like in a clothes.
I call it a booty suit.
Yeah.
I do, because it's all the show.
Oh, yeah, the cameraman, you're like, whoa, it's a little too low, yeah. And they got the dancers, like, can you really be all up on this person,
Yeah.
So that's what's the interesting part about that. And, I'm sure there was probably so much more footage about that alone and whatever. But
and you could tell, too, that when she was talking about it, it's very painful for her.
Yeah.
To think back about it.
She's very
yeah. But, everybody wants to know about it. Here it is. You talk about it once or once more, and then you're done.
Yep. The main thing people wanted to know about was Justin. Did they ever make up? Did they so-and-so? Things happened because when Justin's album came out, and he then started to become this big star. And people were like, oh, about Janet Jackson, whatever. He had been a big star. He was already...
He was rising.
He was already a star, but he was still rising. He got the Grammy nominations. It wasn't like he just was new, but... So then people wanted to ask him about it, and it was kind of doing... Because he's still doing interviews out, and she's not doing interviews, so what do you kind of say? But they hadn't been talking about this, or they hadn't been really, I should say, friendly. All that, too. And when this whole incident came out with Britney, this whole thing came out with Britney, and everybody's talking about that, and
everybody
was blasting him and saying stuff and whatever. And then he put out an apology to Britney about, doing a video and talking about this in interviews and all that. And when he did that statement, he added Janet. He said so and so and so, and also to Janet and whatever. And so fans were like, some fans like, oh, he finally said, in public, I'm sorry this happened, and but she had said that they talked about it. Like, she talked to him right after it happened and told him, not to say anything because they were, not that they were hiding. He was wondering
if he should say something.
He should say something.
If he should make a
basically
statement.
said no because she was already doing her, taking care of it. But long story short,
no, they said she was taking the brunt of it.
Taking the brunt of it. Yeah, there's no need to say
anything.
Yeah, you could say
You can say what you wanted, but I don't think you need to say anything.
Yeah. So it was like they were like trying to hide a statement, and like there's been so much rumors and gossip about this. But I thought it was good for her to say her piece and whatever, and then she comes through on the tape with the clip from 2022, and she's in Miami, and she, they have looked like it was a cell phone that they like took up to record it, and she said that Justin, they spoke, and they're friends, and everything is settled, and that people should forgive him. And that was good to see. That was good to see they finally got that resolved, because for a while it was like, her manager, who I know at the time, used to also manage Justin, so he was trying to get them together, and he made like a tweet, and everybody got all bent, everybody got involved and tried to get into it, and he's trying to get them to make up. I don't know if he's wildly into talking or not, I don't know. But they ended up talking. She said they're back. They're good friends now. And everyone to leave it alone. So it sounds like she's over it, But
yeah, she wants.
Like, she's done with it, And I think I'm glad she didn't do this with both them, only because it would have been so much about they're back together. It's how the clothes, what they're going to wear. It would have been a whole story before they even got on the stage. Yeah. And then after, they made it. They did this. He didn't pull this. He didn't do that. They were this far apart. It would have been like just story they don't need. If she ever does a Super Bowl again, which I don't think she'll do, she could do it on her own.
Yeah.
If he ever does it again, he could do it on his own.
It reminds me, and I know I'm going to get off topic here, but it reminds me of Tina Turner. That documentary she did on HBO.
Which is excellent, by the way. It's another one. If you haven't seen it, watch it on HBO.
Right. Where she says she just wants to put her relationship, her career with Ike Turner, everything all behind her, but everybody keeps bringing it up. Yep. Everybody keeps asking about it. So it's like the thing that would never go away. And I feel like for Janet, the Super Bowl, Michael, a few things like that are never going to go away for her.
Yeah, unfortunately, they're never. Yeah. So she mentioned that, and then they got off of that.
Yeah.
And then pretty much
hour 4.
Yeah, huh?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were going to hour 4.
Yeah, so then that was pretty much, Then hour 4, she starts talking about, her father passing away.
Yeah.
She talked about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which happened in 2019. We were there. And so we were there in New York at the theater. And she talked about that. And then they started showing stuff she had got, like, her icon on her billboard. They started showing her accomplishments. They started showing, like, just passing out receipts. There was so many. It was one of those CBS.
Like the end of the career receipts.
Yeah, it was like the whole roll of paper with CBS. Because people don't realize, they talk about how she sold 8 million copies of her album and never had a tour. Before she even went on a tour and all the number ones. And people don't know she sold over 100 million records. Because a lot of times, there'll be a list of, like, these are the top 10 earning females in the music business. And every time that list comes out, people are like, Janet Jackson? When's the last time she put a record out? Or when's the last time it's called receipts? It's called, I already have this status, and here's what you have.
Before you had streaming and Spotify.
Yeah, before streaming and Spotify. You
actually had to go out and
buy the record. These are copies that I sold, and that's a big difference now. And whatever. So she mentioned that. Then she also talked about having a kid. She had her son, Issa, when she was, he's 5 now. She had him, 5 years ago when she was 50 years old, and her family's like, Janet's having a kid? Oh, well, because they also show, besides, they show Tito and her mom, and then they, and Rebe. And then they also have Paula Abdul, who is one of her first choreographers.
Later,
Paula knows her forever. So they talked about that. They talked about her kid, and that was interesting. She talked about the kid. She didn't mention anything about her husband.
Have relationships,
she didn't mention anything about him at all. Didn't mention anything. I don't know if that's because of the kid, or because she wasn't going to just mention him, or they have some legal, or she just, or they just get it out,
not important.
Or she figured it's just not important. I thought
she's private. She wants to.
She's very private. Yeah, I think, but the fact that she talked about James and she talked about Renee,
James and Renee. And even Jermaine.
They're in the business.
They're all in the business.
They're in the business. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
They're music people.
Yeah, they're in the business where this.
They're public figures.
Her last husband wasn't in the business.
Right.
Yeah.
So I didn't expect anything.
Yeah, I thought for sure she would just say, I got married, didn't work out, and I have a kid. But they basically said, she found a man, it's her son now, or something that,
So cute.
She said she just wanted to be happy.
Yeah, and she seems really happy. She wants to raise her kid, and that's all she wants to do.
That's all she wants
like
to do.
now. So next chapter in her life is him.
And I did not mention that at the time of the Super Bowl, she was dating Jermaine Dupri, who's a record producer.
Right.
Yeah, she was dating Jermaine Dupri, which most people know. If you don't know, look him up. He's produced tons and tons of.
Mariah Carey.
There you go.
With my song. We
tons of artists.
Together.
He used to work with Mariah, and and there's a whole bunch of stuff with Jermaine. And they were living in Atlanta, and she was just happy and just chill. It was like a whole different lifestyle.
That was before her child.
Like, she was there, So I skipped that part, and they dated, and then, he said they broke up, and that was a big Twitter topic. They were like, he broke up because he said he wasn't faithful. But she said he wasn't on drugs, so that was when she got clear. But she sounded like he. I can't speak for her, but she sounded like he's the one that got away. He kind of sounded like she's the one that got away.
Yeah, they did sound that
way.
For
a fact, when I was watching, I was like, oh, they back together? We're going to get
it was a little favorable.
We're going to get a surprise at the end? Yeah. We're going to get a big surprise at the end or whatever. Mm-hmm. So,
if you were doing the documentary yourself, is there one or two things that you would have included that she didn't, or you would have left out that she didn't? Anything like that?
I would have showed maybe some more of her touring. Like
more rehearsal process.
Yeah.
More like Pink's. Pink
yeah,
had
like
one.
Pink had one.
And she gave she has some full performance numbers
some full
in there.
Performance numbers, yeah. Or if that's a lot in the traveling or whatever else too, I would have focused on the residency because then you're in one spot. She could have been like, because when she did her residency in Vegas in 2019, and that was right before everything stopped in the pandemic.
Right.
So right there, I think I would have probably just showed, I'm here now, my daily do list. I get up, I watch a kid, I do this and that.
Right.
5 o'clock we go down. We've been in town for 3 weeks.
Right.
We, it's all the dancers and all that. They also talked about her movie career. Mm-hmm. From Point of Justice to being nominated for an Oscar. For song, being up one of the first people to ever be up for producer of the year, the Grammys.
Yeah.
They talked about that type of stuff. I probably would have showed a little more of the residency. And I probably would have had a little less of Renee. Because you really didn't need.
Yeah.
She was trying to show, like, her videos and the stuff she was making. And he was with this camera. But it was kind of like not staying in order a little bit at that point. And the whole thing was going correct, going right in order.
Right.
That's probably the only thing. And then they also, the last thing they covered was Michael's death. And they talk about Michael's death and, how it affected her. And she had mentioned how the last time she saw him, they had a party for her parents.
Right.
And, that was that. And then she talked about,
they showed some footage of that, actually, too.
Yeah, they showed some footage of that after going to Vegas and, seeing him and bringing the brothers over so they could talk about a reunion tour. And she mentioned a lot about that. And she said, her memories that she was glad of what she had, to see him. And then they mentioned her dad passing away. And then it pretty much ends with her talking about loving touring and loving her job and saying how lucky she is and appreciative she is. And about touring and all that, she basically was saying, I like being a mom. So I took it to me like, I don't have any plans.
That was my impression,
I took it to me, I don't have any plans of touring anytime soon or again or nothing like that. And my impression was, oh God, could you please come back to Vegas and do this residency?
Yeah, do one last goodbye.
Bring baby, bring something,
What I would have done, would have liked to see is that she had a full-on, superstar list of people that were on screen talking about her. Mariah Carey, Samuel Jackson, Whoopi Goldberg, Paula Abdul. There were, so many, people. I would have liked to have seen more time with those people.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
The first time I met Janet was blah, 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 blah. I mean, they had a lot of stuff with Paula Abdul and, their relationship, but I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of that. I think that would have been a more interesting story to hear how Whoopi Goldberg first met her, and they're still friends.
Yes, exactly.
They had Tyler Perry, and he had cast her in movies, but I would like to hear more stuff like that, stories about her. But again, she's private, so that could be the reason why. There was a couple things. I liked the tour of the childhood house, but I probably would have liked the tour of the house that she's living in now.
Yeah,
the house that maybe Randy's living in now, where she lived, all around the globe and all around the world. I probably would have liked a little bit more footage. They showed a lot of footage and interviews from her dad, back in the day. I'd like to have maybe some old footage when they talked about her. I think that's really it. There's not that much I would have changed.
Old footage of the dad or
old footage of her.
Of her talking about the dad?
No, of her.
Just her talking about herself.
Her, conversations in general. We had, her documentary stuff for 5 years ago, but I'm sure she had some footage, or she might have had some more interviews and stuff. Yeah. From when she was on the road, or when she was touring and things like that. I think those might have been the only two things. If you had to grade it, A, B, C, D, E, F, what would you give it?
A. Huh? I'd give it an A.
Yeah, I'd give it an A, or B maybe.
Yeah, I'd give it an A, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would give it an A. I mean, I don't know what people are expecting, but the feedback I saw, it was pretty much all positive. Feedback, it was pretty much all positive. I'm sure there's a few negative, people negative Nellies that come. People who didn't like it, not saying they have to be negative. People, you may not just been your type.
It just wasn't your expecting. Different type of documentary.
I thought it was very nostalgic, very, took me back. And I liked it. I also think they would have been a little bit more, I think I said earlier, of the later records. and different stuff. I know they didn't sell as well, which is probably why they, weren't showing up in other things like that. And then just put all the albums in the sales in order, so you could kind of reference that back.
You want to see a sizzle
reel? They showed it throughout the thing, kind of like a sizzle reel.
Yeah.
I mean, you can just put them out. Here's the first album. How many sold the second album? Well, I guess you didn't do the roster or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they did some accolades.
They did some accolades like that. They did them throughout. But maybe at the end they could put them all up or, show them. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I don't know. That was that. I can't think of anything else.
Either.
I think she should have talked about that she didn't do. She pretty much
her story, and it's like Michelle.
Yeah, her story, and let her do what she wants to do with it.
Let her tell her truth.
That's the good thing. It was like what she wanted to say. What no one could say. Okay, 5 more minutes. I mean, they could say that.
I really enjoyed it,
but I really, really enjoyed it. I definitely think people should watch it. I think people would really enjoy it themselves.
Right.
It is lengthy, so you got to watch part 1, and
that's why it's 2 hours.
And then you watch part 2, so you got your choice. But and I really, really enjoyed it. And then lastly, they showed at the very end, they had a song, which is a song she's working on, I guess for the record. I had never heard of it. And I looked up by the writers to see what year it was or whatever. And I thought that was pretty good. And that was basically, that was pretty good. I was like,
very well produced, very well directed.
Yeah. Very well directed.
Yeah, you got to see a lot about her. There's a lot of stuff you didn't know. And so I think, a Janet Jackson fan, or even just a fan of, women's stories or true stories would like it.
Oh, yeah, I think definitely. You definitely will like it. And that's really it. Do you think that this will lead to more of that kind of style biopics?
Docuseries, yes. I think so. Because A&E recently announced the Bobby Brown story.
Yes.
I don't know what the tone of it's going to be based on some of the other things we've seen of him in the past. It's more, I don't want to say scandal because that's not the right word. It's more paparazzi, more inside, more TMZ style of things that we've seen of Bobby Brown in the past. So I don't know what the style of this one is going to be, but I think it's going to lead to that. Lifetime has always done those biopics. They showed Salt and Pepper one, all these other ones before, so who knows? But I do think it's going to lead to more people telling their stories.
Yes, oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I think definitely, and I also think by being on Lifetime, it wasn't like a TV thing where you go out, you got to go pay, you got to go, you can watch it.
Everyone can watch
their own pace, they can watch it. But people were like, I'm watching this right now.
Yeah.
I am here,
everybody you didn't have to go to HBO and get a subscription.
Yeah, everybody was there. Everybody was there. Everybody was trending.
I love it.
The show was trending. They had a little hat. They had little things by there.
What's your favorite Janet Jackson song or moment or era as a fan?
Yes.
Just curious.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Song, there's so many. Song, Pleasure Principle.
So many.
Song definitely is Pleasure Principle. Pleasure Principle. Pleasure Principle, Nasty. That comes to Control Well, basically. What we've done lately, just kill it.
Yeah.
And then when you start to get into the older, I shouldn't say older.
Later years.
The later years, I call it. I like All For You. She always show. All
I
Right.
like that one too.
She always show. And Be Back. Be Back's probably the newest one.
I don't think I know that.
Be Back came out. I shouldn't sing something.
I like Lonely.
But
I like Escapade. I like Black Cat.
Okay.
I like If. That's the Way Love Goes. Those kind of like songs and stuff I like too.
Yeah,
but I think I enjoy them all.
I really think people should watch it.
Yeah.
Take a look at it. You don't have to watch both parts.
So we recommend watch it.
You should watch what part. Take your time. Take a look. And enjoy it. Some people, but that's what it's basically about. They're going to be telling you about this. She was talking about her life. So
what?
Hopefully, no. I was saying she's going to be talking about her life and the style of it, so people won't watch it and think it's like a concert.
Right.
And that's what people think. Oh, it's a concert movie because they see footage in the trailer.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a concert film. You're not going to be seeing her sitting there singing. I mean, she has a couple clips. She shows up her in concert. Yeah. People screaming a couple things she's doing and talking, but she's not going to be singing. This whole thing nasty for 4 minutes with the dance break and all that.
Yeah, but I said too, it would have been nice to have like one song performance or one I don't know, even if it was that, Lewis song they had. They did show the old footage of her where she was going, let's see, she was on the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon just before the pandemic hit, and she was talking about how she had planned to go on tour and stuff, and then that got cut because of the pandemic. So I don't know if that'll ever happen again.
Well,
Doesn't sound like it.
Yeah, that is true. But
yeah,
but I was gonna go look.
I did too.
I meant to go look and see an eye chart to see how it was. I guess I'll find out about the ratings next week.
Yeah.
But I think songs are going to climb up there. People are going to be getting into it. I saw a lot of talk of it. A lot of talk about it. Even when I went out the house, there was so much talk about it. People talking, oh, the Janet thing comes on. Definitely a lot of things on the Twitter app and Instagram and all that. People seem to really enjoy it. It was just a couple things. I don't think that was basically it.
Yeah.
So it's Lifetime, Janet Jackson,
Period.
And it's on demand right now.
Right.
So you can go. I think they're going to repeat it again next week.
Yeah, it was on Lifetime.
But it's basically on demand.
Just look it up.
Yeah, it's on demand. Look it up because on Sunday night and then Monday night was when it came out when we saw it. Friday night and Saturday night. But if you go to it now on demand, then you can see it.
Right.
And that's basically it.
Yeah.
Janet.
If you're nasty.
If you're nasty.
Janet Jackson, period.
Janet Jackson, period. So, Phyllis, where can we find you on social media?
You can find me at Phyllis_Thomas. Just look me up. I'm there.
Okay. And you can find me playing all things Janet. Control tape ready to go. At Belinda's LA Music on Twitter and Instagram.
Yeah.
And that's it. Taking us out, we got a song from our good friends, Dave Sibiak and John Morgan, called Eden. Take it away. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Thank you,
safe.
Janet.
Thank you, Janet.